For more on this, I want to bring in the man who was hosting the White House Correspondents Dinner, Oz Pearlman, also known as Oz the Mentalist. Oz, we thank you so much for coming on again to Top Story. You are a friend to the show. I want to ask you first, how are you doing? Because I know you had to sort of witness this and live through it, but personally, how are you doing?
Honestly, I'm feeling like a bit tumultuous. It was a crazy night of ups and downs, and an adrenaline dump of when you're in that type of situation. You don't really know how you'll feel until you're in it because you don't expect to. It tends to happen in movies and what I feel like is on TV. I've just never been a character in that type of high-profile incident that was so scary. So today I'm kind of getting back to normal, unwinding a bit. Came home yesterday and hugged my kids, kissed them. I'm on the road quite frequently, so I see them and it's exciting, but this kind of hit different because of the feeling of, wow, what if it would have been a different situation that night? What if I didn't come home to them? And so it just felt different in a way it never has before. Feeling very grateful, very blessed, really, really thankful for the Secret Service and the Washington, D.C. police. I've heard a lot of things about what happened with security that day, but at the end of the day, that was a huge win. This could have been a massive tragedy. No one was killed. It was, I want to thank them tremendously, not just for me, but what they did for everyone. There were thousands of people in that room.
Yeah, including myself. Oz, we're going to roll the video of just before this whole thing went down inside the ballroom. You were performing a trick. I think it was for Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. Walk our viewers through, because we're going to roll the video as you sort of talk through it. You're showing her a trick. What's the trick about, and what's going on on the dais?
So we were in a line behind when POTUS showed up, when the president showed up, we were all in a line before we get brought out and introduced. And I had met the press secretary, and we were just chatting, and we're both parents, and she's expecting her second child, and she said to me in a funny way, like, can you guess the name? And I go, I don't know if you know this, Caroline, I specialize in guessing the names of people, and if this is a challenge I'll take on. And the president walked in, and everybody's at attention. I had a chance to meet him, say a very quick hello to the First Lady, who I'd never met before, and I said, let's put a pin in it. I'm going to come back to this, Caroline. And so it was just a very funny thing where later on the dais, I walked over, and I said to her, I said, Caroline, I'd love to give this a shot. And that's when I was standing right next to Ouija, who was hosting the First Lady and President Trump. And I started kind of the same thing I did with you on the show once, is I started watching her expression, guessing how many letters were in it. And if you watch me speaking, I guess a letter, and you see kind of a reaction from the First Lady. And then I write down a name, and I show it to the First Lady, to Ouija, and the President turns his head at this moment. And right then is when I say to her, what are you naming your daughter? And I rip it off, and at that peak moment, the timing is just so insane. I show it to her. You see reactions from all three of the women. You see President Trump starting to turn our way, and right then, in the room is when we notice the main commotion. I didn't notice all the people starting to duck underneath tables at that point, but I saw it afterwards when I watched the video. But that's when I saw all of the Secret Service, the SWAT team running in and going full force at a specific spot in the room is what I saw, because we're at an elevated position. I'm trying to assess what is this, because it doesn't seem like a medical emergency. And I'm kind of starting to hear right at that moment next to me, I believe it was Courtney from Bloomberg. I saw her out of the corner of my eye going down first, if memory serves me right. And then they don't say down, but I go, oh my God, it looks like they're going at one table. And I just think in my head, I just remember vividly, oh my God, is there a bomb in here? That's the first thing I thought. I didn't really think shooter, because I hadn't heard any noises. Other people have said different things. I just thought there's about to be an explosion. I get down. Muscle memory, I got to get down right now. I'm on all fours, and I kind of face to the left. I just went down this way, and I'm looking up out of the corner of my eye and seeing the president getting up, two men behind him. He's starting to go down. He's going down kind of slowly, so I just vividly remember them going on top of him, what I would have described as pretty forcefully. It was not like a subtle, like, let's go down slowly, Mr. President. It was them protecting him. And I think that's when the fear really hit me, because I just said this wasn't a dress rehearsal, or they would not be putting the President of the United States down this forcefully on the ground. And I think that's when the adrenaline really hit of, oh my God. And when he went down, this is by pure chance. I turn, we're next to each other, and our faces are the opposite direction, but we look right at each other. And I think that's the only moment where the full fear of this hit me of, oh no, like, are we going to die? Like, I've seen this on TV. He's been shot. There's been assassination attempts, and it's just hitting me that, is this happening right now here? How can this be? And then within about 2 seconds, it felt much longer in the moment, he gets up. He's kind of getting up, but not fully, and they take him out. And so I don't know what to do because no one is taking me out. So I'm just kind of like waiting, and we turn and we face, because there's 3 of us who all see each other on all fours. And I go, is there shooting? Because I'm thinking, like, am I hearing shooting? Like, there's so much noise and commotion in the room. I thought I had heard shooting at this point, or at least 2 or 3 loud noises. I don't know if they are shooting. I've read reports, so I can't tell for sure. And I go, is there someone still shooting? And they go, I don't know. That's what Courtney said to me. And I go, what do we do? And so we start army crawling out behind the curtain. There's like a gold curtain. And we keep going. I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 seconds before, and then I get up and I run. I just run low until we're in what I would describe as safety, because at that point, there's no vantage point from the stage. We are backstage, and there are people with guns everywhere, like more than I've ever seen in one room. Going, coming, handguns, Secret Service people. Some are in tuxedos where it looks like they were probably somebody who was part of, the party, as well as full tactical SWAT gear. I would say at that moment, the fear for my own personal safety kind of subsided, because I felt as if there's just no way anyone's getting back here. But at that point, all of us were figuring out what's going on. Was the president shot? I did not know when he went down what his situation was. We looked into each other's eyes. There was no communication. There was just full, shock from my part. I haven't spoken to him to know if he was in shock, but I was very fearful. So I looked at him, and we didn't know if he'd been shot, if the First Lady had been shot. There was very, very scant information for about 5 minutes before we were told POTUS is safe, First Lady is safe. We thought a shooter had been killed. So I don't know if you heard the same reports, but we were told somebody was killed, that there was shooting, and that they were searching for another shooter in the building potentially, but they didn't know if there was any active threats. And we are not allowed to go anywhere, no bathroom, nothing. And I was just trying to find out if my wife was safe as well.
Yeah, Oz, you were on stage, and I don't know if this thought crossed your mind, but I know when I was sitting there, we had, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and also the Secretary of Energy, Secretary Wright, that was sitting at our table. And now that you say this, it did look like the Secret Service was headed towards one table. I do remember that. I remember yes. Thinking, we have secretaries at our table. They're probably going to come over here to either protect them or get them to safety. Did it cross your mind, if there's somebody in here with a gun or with a bomb, they're coming after President Trump, and I'm right next to President Trump?
Oh, 100%. So again, my thought was never, because of, again, the security at these types of events, somebody getting outside in is near impossible, was my thinking. But having someone in the room that somehow snuck something in, that was my fear. That's much more of a great fear in my mind in this type of event, that somebody's already in the room. And that's why everyone was coming in the room so fast. Again, my thought was truly not of a shooter. And I don't know why this is. I thought the room was about to explode. That's what, the adrenaline in my body was. I was bracing because I thought there was about to be an explosion in the room. I was also thinking in my mind that my wife's table was very far away from where I saw everyone going. So it was both thoughts. Again, this is racing. I don't know how you were, but you don't really know how to prepare for a situation like this, because I typically thought this would never happen to me. Again, I know it's silly, but when it's happening, it's very sudden and it's very quick, and you don't know what you'll do in that moment.
Yeah. And Oz, I would say you almost have a false sense of security, because you go through those metal detectors. You were with the Secret Service. You're with the most powerful people in the entire planet, in the world. The president and his cabinet are all there. I didn't know your wife was there. I cannot imagine what that was like. How long until you reached her, and what was the first thing you said to her?
So we couldn't get phone calls. No phones worked. I don't know about you, but there was no signal, because everybody was doing the same thing I was. 2,800 people are all trying to call out and say, what's going on? So I couldn't get anyone on the phone. I was sending texts to different people, and all of them were just staying in the blue and not going through. And then finally one went through to my friend, and 5 of his got through to me instantly, because I guess Wi-Fi kicked. And he said, your wife's really worried she's not doing well. I think because I was on the dais and I was performing, they were watching me, because I was on the screens and they were like, what's he doing for the president? It was kind of it wasn't a show for everyone, but I was warming up the crowd because my intention was to hopefully get the president, the vice president, and some of the other dignitaries to want to take part in my later show, which was going to be televised for everyone. So I was kind of sweetening them up, warming up the room, letting them know what I do so they would feel comfortable with me. And that's why I went over there and kind of performed a few tricks for the vice president and the president right when we sat down. It was a warm-up. And they were watching me, and the next thing they know, my wife, this is what she told me later, is that they just saw me disappear, the president get put down. We didn't know if there were shots fired. People told me they heard shots in the room. I thought I heard shots as well. I don't know the timeline, so I don't know if what I was hearing was trays falling, tables falling, but my wife thought the worst. She just did not know, and there was no way to get information for what felt like a very long time.
Yeah, terrible night. I know you're an entertainer. You make people happy. You know, in a lot of ways, you make people remember an event or a night, right? Because you have that gift. You experienced political violence on Saturday night. In our industry, we see this a lot. We cover it. It's terrible. What's your impression after having lived through something like this?
My impression is that I know that as a country we're divided, but I think that that night specifically, and why I was honored to be hosting, is to celebrate this right now. The First Amendment, the freedom of the press, the fact that we can have dissenting opinions. You can have an opinion that's not the same as someone else, that you don't like what somebody's doing in terms of policy. But the way I think to exercise that right and that power is at the voting booth and not by going out and committing political violence, because even the people that think that that might be a solution, that solution can happen on both sides, against you, against them. That is never the way to handle things in a democracy. So I just think that everyone together should state emphatically that this is not the way we should be moving forward as a country. This should not be normalized. This thought that this is staged or fake, which I just find to be obscene. You and I were there. There's nothing fake or staged about what I saw, the bullet holes I saw, the fear in everyone's face. I don't know. I find that reality and truth are becoming a scarce commodity, and that there needs to be more of a united front in this country for democracy.
It is. Yeah, it's a wild and it is a scary time, and that's why it's so important to make sure you have the right and correct information, and you're getting that from the right and correct sources. Oz Pearlman, we thank you so much for taking the time. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I know you did not sign up for that.
You too. You too. Listen, we're alive and well. It could have been a whole different night. I just feel blessings and gratitude.
Yeah, you're a great guy, and thank you for sharing with our viewers your experience. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.